Good evening, fans of the Southeastern Esports League. Welcome back for playoffs. This is where it gets real serious now, as everybody is searching for a spot on land. We've got 3 spots already locked up mathematically, as ETSU, Florida, and Bruton Parker will be in Huntsville in May, but we've got to decide the other 5. I'm Mr. Bepic, joined in the booth by just TJ. The DJ is gone, just TJ in game. TJ, how you doing?
I'm doing good. The name change is not something that will affect my casting career, don't worry, but obviously I have been invited to go play at Knoxville next weekend at Voland. So I had to lock in, had to get my LJ-esque aura going. But speaking of aura farming, we're officially here in SEL playoffs, and there's a lot of talent here at hand that cannot wait to hit the pitch. And there's so many good games that it gets so hard to actually pick a stream match. But Bepic, I got a pretty good feeling about what we got tonight.
Well, if you missed State of the SCL yesterday, we broke down all the matchups. TJ and I will try and cover as much as we can, but we're starting off with the 8 versus the 9 seed in round 1, which is perfect. Both these two teams were stuck with each other, as Florida Southern went 0-3 in the bottom side of winner's circle, so they didn't get their pick as to who they wanted to play, and nobody else wanted this George Mason team. Both these squads went 4-3 in group play. George Mason did it in Tier 2, Florida Southern did it in Tier 1. And since then, Florida Southern's gone 0-3. George Mason's gone 3-0. Was the only team to make it out of the last chance qualifier and not play a Game 5. This GMU team's hot.
I mean, the even bigger story at hand is Titanium has come back onto the roster. It's crazy that when we were in Myrtle Beach together, Bepic, we were told that Jasnon was supposed to take over the A-team spot, but because of league restrictions and substitute rules, they had to move Jasnon back down to the B team, and they said, you know what, let's just throw Titanium in and just let him resolve all of our issues. And he has not only been the leader that we're used to seeing on GMU, he has now taken over across every league that this George Mason team is in, every land that they're in. He's looked incredible, like he's been grinding the entire, I guess, off season for him because he hasn't been on the GMU roster. So now with Florida Southern not having a lot of experience against a newly reformed, like you already mentioned, very hot GMU roster, it's a little scary, but also can't count out players like Astro.
No, you cannot. Florida Southern has been playing some of the best Rocket League of their careers. Soj is very excited about this team's potential in playoffs, as they've figured out a lot of their, I think, shortcomings previously as a trio. Maybe some over-reliance on Astro, Soj and Zipper not completely unlocking Astro's ability, but we've talked about it on stream plenty, how this team likes to play, where it's Soj and Zipper doing a lot of the stepping up and kind of allowing Astro to play comfortably in a series, because in my eyes, he's not a bubble player that should have to carry his team. He's probably capable, but I think he's more comfortable in a more of a facilitator role with Soj and Zipper stepping up. So we'll see if they can take on a hot George Mason team here, as I think both teams are about ready.
I mean, as it should be. You need to have your best players sit in the middle, but I have not gotten to see this more recent GMU roster. You obviously got to work Collision on the coast.
Yep.
But without further ado, there's a lot of questions that I have to answer with, seeing with my own eyes. And playoffs, round 1, the 8 and the 9 seed. We're going to throw it directly in, Bepic. Welcome to the playoffs.
Let's do this thing. Florida Southern in red, George Mason in green. A clash of colors as old as time, and Soj is already driving underneath the ball. A little awkward start right there, but it's all good as Florida Southern clear their end. And Astro up front is trying to be a facilitator for Zipper, though. George Mason playing good defense here. They are well set up to defend against this FSC attack early on, though I say that and nobody was back. Zipper may have jumped the gun on that read, and FSC come away empty-handed with a possession that could have been fruitful.
Playoffs always brings the most interesting gameplay, but speaking of that, Dev will find a bottom left corner. It's beautifully placed off of GMU's first shot of the game.
And Titanium right there in the middle of the play, setting up Dev off the ceiling, and that shot was perfect. It was about a ball-sized hole in that bottom left corner, and that's exactly where Dev placed the rock. A good start for George Mason offensively. Defensively, they were a little bit scrambled, but hey, if you're only playing offense, things will go well for you, and they've won the subsequent kickoffs, maybe add to this lead.
One of the big storylines I'm more interested to see is, not to mention how the new look GMU decides to play, but also the pressure of the playoffs. GMU, a team that is recently new to the SCL, Florida Southern as well, and both of them have seemed to handle the pressure in their own ways, and Dev will take it on his own shoulders. How is that kept out of the net? But the attack of Florida Southern is still strong.
The precarious stop, though, for George Mason, and finally, the Moccasins will break through. It's Soj doing the scoring here to tie us up just 1:15 into Game 1.
I mean, you'll take it. We make this point time and time again on broadcast that the SCL is an interesting league. We have great players. We have incredible ability here on the field, but for some reason, the pressure of the SCL seems to hit these players like a truck that they've never seen before, as Dev's pass will be a little too hard and a little too far away from Jane to try and find something. Jay does have room to go to work. Not a lot of boost, though. Is forced to just get under it and give it away to Astro. And that's one player that if you're GMU and you were game planning in any sort of capacity, I know for sure Tihan pointed Astro out.
Well, he is the guy to watch out for, obviously, being in RLCS main events previously in his career, and still is a force to be reckoned with all over the field. His consistency is difficult to break through, and right there, his speed off the goal line is enough to set up Zipper for a clear, and 50 there with Dev, where he just kind of gives the ball away, but Astro's right back into the play, though bails out. Titanium and Jay break away, pass together, and Titanium will shoot over 2, scoring his first of the series and the second for George Mason.
Something tells me that won't be the first time that we see Titanium's name in the lights here. Again, it's too easy for him as a veteran of CRL and a veteran of any level of collegiate play. He's been the cornerstone if you look at George Mason's history. And even though he is on his back half looking to get out of George Mason, he's come back and been more than useful for their offense and defense. See if Dev can potentially open up a lane for something to happen, but again, nobody there middle. And Astro, another great play, but GMU controlling the midfield even with the air dribble attempt.
Florida Southern getting better presence in the offensive zone, continuing to up some field domination numbers, though George Mason will find themselves an opening. Soj and Zipper take it away really quickly, not allowing George Mason to really establish themselves in offense. And so we've seen a lot of counterattacks from GMU, which is fine. It seems like they're doing all right in that kind of mode, as Titanium on the ball again gains a lot of room for his team to advance with. But Soj finds a seam and will test Dev there on the goal line. And George Mason, I mean, there's a lot on the line for them in this playoffs, is basically advancement through one round in the lower bracket, which if you win here, you don't gain any more points or lose more points than you would gain with a win. With the current playoff bracket, how many points are on the line, as you would go back to lower round 1. So George Mason still need to win in lowers if they do drop here, but with a win there, they basically qualify for LAN automatically.
I mean, luckily for George Mason, you come in after the fall split playoffs holding about 18 points from what I have in my notes. So, yes, the margins to make it to the actual LAN are not exactly the most favorable, but with how hot this George Mason team is, I mean, throw the math aside, I think that they're not too worried about that. I think if they continue to trust in Titanium and this new system that Tihan's got them playing under, it's only a matter of time before they find themselves in Huntsville with us, and Dev will slam that off the corner, and Astro keeps that one out, and what could have been an early dagger is pushed away, and now it's George Mason on their back foot. Zipper, backboard, Soj is there, but the tap-in denied for the time being.
Okay, well, for George Mason, the math is actually pretty good for making it to LAN, but Florida Southern is the team that needs a lot of wins to make it to Huntsville. And this is a pretty good start, having this sort of form coming into playoffs where they're punishing any kind of opening on that George Mason side. And a top 4 run is essentially what is needed out of any team that didn't play in the fall semester or make playoffs in the fall semester to make it to LAN. And FSC's in that boat, so starting here with a win against a good-looking George Mason roster would be quite nice, though they still need at least one more goal in Game 1.
Consistency's been the game of George Mason, a rare lapse in judgment. They just came through here with about a minute left, so I would imagine that if Florida Southern, a team that seems to play very, I won't say emotionally charged, but off the momentum of the game, that seems to be their main style, and they're going to give this one up to George Mason. I was going to say you cannot let this first one go in this situation.
Nope, and it goes. Nice pass out. Titanium locates Dev, and That is something that Titanium brings to this roster. It seems like GMU play is way more of a cohesive unit when he is in the lineup, always looking for extra touches, extra passes to set teammates up for success in offense. And right there, Dev was set up for success, and he converted on it. Now another opportunity for him if he has any more boost in the tank. I think he sticks with the ball, maybe doubles it. It doesn't matter. Jay cleans up. And just when we're talking about an FSC comeback, it's George Mason that lay down the law.
I'm not sure if I believe my eyes, Bepic. Is this a George Mason team that's demoing to open up goals? I mean, I feel like that this is completely against when George Mason was in their glory days with Titanium on this roster. So it's that early adaptability, regardless of who's starting for this team, something that a program of George Mason's tenure has been known for, and they show it here in game number 1. It's a little messy at times, but for a playoff series in the SCL, both teams control and played it well. George Mason, though, just showing that they are at least more fit to take the early lead. A nice little 3v1 as well for Jay, who is able to deny that somehow, and George Mason get out of here, I would say, fairly clean to start.
The fact that Jay, like even in garbage time, Jay taking a 1v3 like that and defending it perfectly is a really good sign for George Mason, because there they started out a little bit skittish defensively, where there were some bigger gaps for Florida Southern to potentially take advantage of. George Mason cleaned it up, and Florida Southern's a talented enough offense to still create openings of their own. Soj had 5 shots that game and was striking fairly well, but GMU overall so solid and throws so many looks at that moccasin goal line for them to have to worry about, let alone play an offense.
Florida Southern, though, a team that offensively has put many of the best across Tier 1 on the ropes. And even though George Mason had maybe lesser competition, they haven't seen a team like Florida Southern. I don't know if there's a single team in their group that you can compare to the way this roster works. But one thing that we talked about, or at least that I like to talk about with this Florida Southern roster the entire season, is it's not about Astro. You know what you're going to get from him. He's going to be consistent. He's going to do his best to control the midfield and the back line. But on the offensive side, you always expect, or at least want to expect, Soj and Zipper to step up. They don't have to play off of each other, but at least use Astro as a middle piece of what should be artwork of their offensive side. But regardless, they still got to paint that picture here in game 2.
Need a recovery on Forbidden Temple, as game 1 didn't quite go their way. Giving up 4 to George Mason isn't a great stat line to start this series off with, but both sides are experienced. Both sides know how to play in high-pressure situations. And Jay will start us off with a solo play, and that FSCN will best Soj and Zipper committing together right there in defense, but Astro does make that stop on the goal line, though FSC need to recover on their back line because George Mason are trying their best to stuff in the opening goal, though the Moccasins somehow escape alive.
I mean, you're going to take it, as Soj also has to dive across the line in heroic fashion. And Florida Southern, rarely on stream have we seen them on their back line like this. Granted, this is a team that are in these playoffs that wasn't Tier 1. They're there for a reason. And even though they did have to pick this George Mason team of all the teams possible to play it, at least they show up and they are ready to go here in Game 2. But there's going to need to be a lot more adjustments, especially considering how much offense GMU is gathering right now. And finally, a small lapse in the offense will open up a lane for Soj to make some room, but George Mason finding some time, forcing Zipper to waste a lot of boost and give the ball away as well. But not the most really safe setup from Titanium. A decent 50, but nothing that's going to give him too much room. Soj once again, a heavy touch. Astro has a backboard, and that means it's basically a goal, and he will do just that.
Poor Dev, having to watch this play develop as Soj locates Astro and gets the ball through Jay as well, who was in position to stop that, just couldn't make the read. And after Astro gets a free backboard like that, he's scoring that double tap. Even if Dev is positioned a bit better to stop it, Astro's probably scoring it. That's a great finish there. And Florida Southern, despite the scares, plural, off defensively at the start of this game too, they will take first blood and look to add some more.
Ooh. Astro, big reset, but no major second man in play as Soj had 0 boost. So now it's up to Zipper to try and stall out some time and get the offense moving. Titanium, though, somebody who's probably seen that play 1,000 times, is able to cut that off and get GMU back on the offense. But another pinch comes through, forcing him to jump, but it is misread. Now here comes an open net. Soj, though, doesn't rush it, and I'm not sure if it would have been saved or not, but it for sure looked like it could have been a shot.
Would have been close. I don't think you can blame him for taking it slow right there, but still definitely saved as George Mason had time to recover when Soj took his time, and there's no further offense built off of it. And at the moment, it's a lead for Florida Southern, but here comes Dev off the crossbar. He misses, but two-thirds of this FSC back line missed the read as well to try and clear immediately. And the Patriots once again can set up their offense with a scrambling Moccasins back line, trying to recover what has been a terrifying start to this sequence.
Dev looking to open up a lane middle. Jay also going to be awkward trying to open up that same lane as this ball bounces out. He looks top left, and it will just dink off the bar slightly. It's not going to be a major find, though. This one's dunked middle by Dev, but a lot more boost and a lot more composure is being shown here in Game 2 for the Moccasins. And Jay will try to change that. Titanium as well, who's looking for bumps ahead, but also, again, the control and the first touches from Florida Southern are something to talk about. It's one of their biggest adjustments, and now you're letting Astro almost have a generational counterattack right there. Now it's up to Titanium to get his own attempt at it. Misses galore here on the FSC side. Jay will try and finally take some time. Looking middle, pre-jump Zipper, pre-jump Dev. Neither player will find a clear or a shot. Titanium goes, and that right there is a veteran slot from the leader himself. We're tied.
This seam that Titanium had to shoot on as Astro was upfield. Zipper gets tagged, I think, by Dev on Dev's exit from the play, and Soj is on the near side with a chance at it, but Titanium puts that ball so perfectly into the back of the FSC net that Moccasins are not getting back to save that one miraculously, as they had for the rest of this game so far. A lot of good stoic plays on the goal line that look like miracles with how low on boost they were defensively, and to this point, not too shabby against 7 shots, only letting 1 in for FSC, but there is still a lot of work left to be done as George Mason gains steam.
Just about 70 seconds to go here. Titanium will look to make some room once again, but Florida Southern, big bang downfield, and on the offensive plays right before this, they were making very heavy touches, not finding a lot, and you can see below on the battlefield that there is bumps coming through, but again, no major follow-ups for Florida Southern. It's a pretty massive boost drought across every single team's line, and that's a major triple commit. Titanium will force Astro into an awkward spot, but it won't matter too much. Look at this beautiful setup. Soj to Astro. Astro looking for himself. Zipper, shot, he forces it high. Soj down and in! 2-1 with Florida Southern taking a few tries.
And this play's set up because of that aggressive play from George Mason. It was a triple commit with Dev driving underneath the play, looking for, I think, demos on the FSC end, but that used up so much boost from the entire George Mason side that right there you saw the open backboard for Astro, and Zipper probably should have scored his shot opportunity, but Soj has his teammates back, and that's a big-time go-ahead goal for FSC, as now if they can hold on for 30 seconds, we're off and running in our best-of-5.
Good pass from Jay. Good shot from Dev. GMU needs to find something quick here if they want to try and get out of these playoffs, or at least the first part of these playoffs. Getting closer and closer to Huntsville. Jay can do it, but he misses it. He drops it to 90 degrees, drops it directly below him. It's not going to be towards net. Counterattack is still on. Jay does find another shot off the back foot of Astro. Titanium, weak touch. Astro, really nice first touch. A great flick as well. Dev, can he keep it up? No double. Soj is there. It won't matter. Florida Southern, very narrow margins, but tie the series up.
So thin, those margins. I mean, 3 shots. They had to make 10 saves. Field domination was 67% in favor of George Mason, who put 17 shots on targets. That is an absurd stat line. And if you just hide the goals scored, I think, for both teams, most people would assume that George Mason dominated this game. But my word, Florida Southern survived in Game 2. I don't think they can handle another game like that going forward and escape with a win. But here, that's a big-time Forbidden Temple performance to get them on the board.
When the ball is on the defensive side of Florida Southern, you can guarantee Astro will lead the way there. That is his role on this team. He is the facilitator, so we expect him to be able to carry in that aspect. But for how long can that dynamic happen? You pose a great question there, and unfortunately, I'm not sure how I feel about it yet if we're going to see another 17 absurd shot line from George Mason. I mean, it is a matter of time before some of those keep falling in, and I would hope it's also a matter of time before the Moccasins start to find some offense of their own. There's a lot that needs to change in terms of the, I will say, aggressive nature of players like Zipper and Soj, who normally are able to create chaos. And now that George Mason have at least shown that they can handle it almost there in Game 2, I wonder if they're going to bounce back even stronger in Game 3, or will Florida Southern be able to keep their momentum going in a pre-jump? Jay almost answers part of that question. Pressure still on for GMU.
And for Florida Southern, as it looks like they're playing a consistent amount of defense this game, with GMU setting up passing plays galore. I think last game, positionally, Florida Southern was pretty rock solid, but when it came to the quality of challenges that they were getting to try and break out of defense like that's a dominated 50-50 by Soj, and they didn't get that, really, last game from anyone except for Astro defensively. And that's, I think, part of why they were able to survive, as Soj and Zipper on the back line did well to survive, make saves, especially Soj, and then set up Astro in the rotation to break out with plays like this. That's how they won Game 2. And so I think their challenge game has to improve, especially defensively from Zipper and Soj. But so far, so good. We're going back and forth here as George Mason, again, offensively, throwing a lot of different looks at Florida Southern, whether it's solo plays, demo plays, or passing plays. I think they've already had one of each.
No matter how good you are at Rocket League, one of the biggest key factors of higher ranked play, or even middle ranked play, as I was going to say earlier, as we're seeing demos across the net as well, but nothing major. But efficiency is the key word, and I'll put a pin in it for now, because Astro just finds a clean dunk.
Oh, poor Titanium here. He's just a half step behind. He hits the brake maybe a millisecond too soon. Can't keep the ball on his hood, and so Astro dunks him into potentially the lower bracket if Florida Southern can keep this one going, as it take the first goal again here of Game 3, despite George Mason's field domination, hovering around a similar number as Game 2.
Well, I might as well get back to the point that I was referring to. The efficiency of both teams has been almost two completely different worlds. Florida Southern has found incredible efficiency on defense, taking complete control, finding great plays in the midfield, opening up flip resets and double taps that did give them the 2 out of 3 shot line, and it was all they needed to win. But meanwhile, on George Mason's side, all their attacking touches have been extremely efficient. You see Titanium demonstrated right here in the midfield, until So decides to take him out. Can't blame him for that. Now Dev could show efficiency. He might just do it all himself. Jay does get a bump, but it is off. And that was going to be my last point in that narrative there, was that George Mason find every touch other than the last one, whether it's through a Florida Southern defender or whether it's an overall missed touch. Regardless, George Mason, some of the maybe woes of Titanium coming back late into the season showing in playoffs here.
Still, they can thrive in excess, even if it doesn't lead to a ton of goals, but nothing in the first half of Game 3 on Driftwoods. Dev will try and change that, gives Jay some space in that FSC corner, and Jay tried to bait Soj to a miss there in the corner, but doesn't pan out. So again, the Moccasins find a big stop defensively, and they have improved, I think, their challenge game, especially in the midfield, as they found some more time spent in offense. Not a ton, but a little bit more compared to Forbidden Temple. With 2 minutes left, George Mason still are scoreless, and Astro will keep them as such as he breaks away with nothing in the tank. It's just a slow clear for FSC that turns into a 1v2 that Zipper jumps the gun on and gets the stop.
This is the dream scenario if you are a Florida Southern fan. Yes, you may take a lot of shots and you may have a lot of bruises on your defensive end, but they know and they've shown that they can handle it no matter who the team is. Even a team like George Mason, who obviously have been extremely hot coming into these playoffs. And so far, with 90 seconds left, they're still continuing to show that. Also finding demos to stall out and force a lot of boosts to be used from GMU. This pass middle also blocked off. And again, you don't need Florida Southern to make any major sweeping plays. You just need them to keep control of the ball and the pace of play. And so far, they continue to win the midfield until Dev finally has an answer for it. Looks for his teammate middle, Titanium, who was going to go middle, I thought, to himself, but no, actually to a teammate off the corner. Touch goes middle again. Zipper's there to deny. Again, Florida Southern not concerned here with a minute to go.
I cannot believe Astro made that last block. He used every last drop of boost in the tank to hover in the air and make that block at crossbar level, despite getting up very early on for the last play in the sequence. So George Mason still are scoreless. 40 seconds left, and that might be in. Jay's got no boost, no car, but the shot's not on target. So close for Soj, but FSC have still given themselves opportunities in offense, and Zipper moves in to shoot, though Titanium blocks him. Jay next up thinks better of going up and does get a shot on frame, though Astro blocks it. Titanium's rebound's no good, as Soj is in the area boostless, but still in position to make the stop. 10 seconds left now, and Florida Southern have cleared.
Ball is in GMU's corner, though. It's completely in their hands. Dev, air dribble, beats two. Player is there. It's actually going to be back to Dev. It will sit middle. Titanium couldn't get there. Jay has to keep it up. Can anybody get there from the Patriots? Redirect goes into the hands of Astro. Dev has to be careful. Ball will touch the ground, though. And Florida Southern surviving the battle in their half for another game.
This is such a precarious series for the Moccasins. Like, I'm not confident they're going to be able to keep it up, but I said that after game 2 when they played this much defense again. Over 60% of the game was spent in their half. George Mason, though, only had 9 shots on target, and FSC's challenge game was much improved, especially Soj and Zipper at the midfield line. They weren't losing 50s at the same rate. In fact, they were winning, I think, even more than we saw in Forbidden Temple. And it led to more time spent in offense, more shots as they doubled their tally from game 2. And that was enough to, again, I think, survive a game against George Mason. But they're getting dubs and just need one more to advance.
I'm with you. It's a little surreal to see Florida Southern going toe-to-toe with the veterans of CRL here in the SCL, looking at George Mason. And it's also just as surprising to see George Mason struggle on offense like this. Again, in almost every LAN or league appearance this team has made in the last, I would argue, maybe even 2 months, Bepic, they've looked really good, not to mention their success ever since the Bloom, I believe, less than a month ago. It's just surprising to see, but now they're at their ultimate testing point. Your SEL season is on the line. You're down not just a game, but it's the game. I mean, it's match point. You've got to make it happen not just once, but twice, and you've got to start to win the midfield and the boost battle to get that thing started. But regardless, again, if Florida Southern strikes first, that right there is in GMU's court. We'll see if they can do it at the hands of Titanium. Gets a decent 50 to start, but again, a very slow, progressive offensive push from GMU.
Well, George Mason, since the return of Titanium to the starting lineup, as he backflips there. 3-0 last chance qualifier. Third place at Collision on the Coast, a 4-0 versus James Madison on LAN. But they are struggling handily tonight. That's a big error to give up a free first goal to Florida Southern, and Astro benefits.
I mean, a big mistake to kick off a critical game. I mean, again, if this series has any major notes to talk about, it's if Florida Southern can get a 1-goal lead, regardless of how bad of a shootout it may or may not be. They tend to simply not have to play offense for the rest of the game. Now, granted, I don't know if they can do it for 4 minutes, but if GMU keeps missing their opportunities, it's going to be rough, but they finally put one in.
Well, Jay's got to hit shots like that, and Soj might have had a save there, might not have, depending on the quality of the shot, but George Mason used passes to get back into the play, and finally, their sequence of many passes leads to a strong shot on target, which I think they've been lacking a little bit. The quality of shots on target, and they've been light, they've been shot at defenders with low boost, and despite all the good work that they're doing in controlling field domination, it's just that striking ability that's been thwarting George Mason in this series. But if they can change that, and they can get Titanium making up for his previous mistake here, and there is a way back for the Patriots. But at the moment, it's Florida Southern with a bit of time and space in the offensive zone. Soj closes down, gives Astro a chance to shoot, but GMU survive.
George Mason looks rushed by nobody other than themselves. I mean, Florida Southern obviously aware of the situation. You can tell they picked up the pace a little bit, but by no surprising margins for a team like GMU, and especially considering some of the teams they've played and won against as of recent as well. So it's confusing, but also it's still a tie game. So I'm sure for Tihan, there's maybe a slight breath of relief after every major clear, but that's not the main point. Yes, surviving is obviously the goal of these playoffs, but also creating your chances, creating opportunity is something that GMU has shown they can do in the SCL, but Florida Southern did it in a tier higher and will also go a tier higher with a goal here.
They straight out challenged GMU this entire sequence as George Mason was just trying to scrap for any kind of power on the ball they could find, and FSC just kept barreling through them. Eventually, Astro gets an open look like that where Dev is in the air, but not close touching the ball. And Astro will nail that shot. Jay plays this ball backwards, but Florida Southern, with more time in offense, have flipped the narrative that they're only surviving on their back line to win games here, as they have the 60% field domination in Game 4, and it's George Mason that are well backed up.
So, redirect, fakes for one. Could have been a potential early dagger there, but Florida Southern still keeping their foot on the gas, which is a little surprising to see. I mean, granted how GMU has played so far, I can't say I'm too surprised. If Asher wants to take it to him, Jay just barely gets his hands on that one as that ball will rip off the bar. Ball falls back to him as well, and no major pass because of all the bumps and all of the boosts in the hands of Florida Southern. And again, this is what they've done the entire series. They don't need to find immediate shots. Unless Astro just decide to take one there because they get all the boost, they get all the possession. They force Titanium to potentially peek here to find a pass to a teammate, and that's what will happen. We're tied with twos across the board.
Dev steps up, hits his mark, but look at that musty from Titanium. Are you kidding me? Off the backboard of FSC with a musty flick to give Dev that space to shoot. And George Mason are now starting to step up with individual presence on the ball. They've shown FSC looks in that offensive zone with a bunch of demos, tons of passes, but if you got players musty flicking and forcing the backboard open with that, then yeah, you're going to be in a good spot with just straight plan A's on target, though. Florida Southern have their immediate answer here as they've got an open goal line-ish. They find a gap off the backboard to create it.
It's poor positioning from the George Mason defense. They're not able to make plays quick enough. They got beat 3 times in a row there. It's unheard of, granted, how their success in Division 2 was. But maybe this is the wake-up call to Tier 1 that they didn't get in the LCQ. Granted, still, plenty of time for that to be figured out. And this is also the first time that GMU has been able to go toe-to-toe, back and forth with Florida Southern. In the previous games, it was Florida Southern scored, and, well, you might as well just chalk the game up after that. But now Florida Southern have got to survive the toe-to-toe as well because we are still tied.
Clean shot again. GMU have found their shooting boots, and Titanium set up, puts the ball over Soja's head, and it's FSC caught out defensively after a series of pretty good positioning, I would say, in their goal line. That's how they survived a lot of this George Mason pressure. But we've got a shootout here in Game 4. Game 5 potentially on the line, only if George Mason can find that next one.
Dangerous play from Jay to let this one not only go behind him, but to no teammate as well. Again, the boost numbers, something to watch out for. There's barely any once again in the hands of GMU. Dev and Jay will finally find at least a little bit to make a play potentially happen. Titanium will fill the gap behind both of them. You'll see Jay right here just waiting on something to happen, but no boost is in his hands still, and that's big for Florida Southern. That midfield has room, but the passing play could have developed for GMU, but it's another miscue. Astro, reset, looks to call game here, but no set match just yet. Almost 30 seconds to go. GMU, you need a breather, and you need it quick because Florida Southern have flipped the script on its head entirely and are looking to get away here with not a robbery, but a dominant performance in Game 4.
Titanium is once again stealing the spotlight for his team as it was in a negative way to open things up. That big mistake early on, but now he's taking it back with pure positivity. Was left in an awkward spot as Jay and Dev both whiffed on an opportunity to touch the ball in defense, and he still survived. Titanium did. And now it's Jay on the back line stepping up himself defensively as he's been good this series, but has been prone to occasional errors, though right now, George Mason are firing on all cylinders. Dev takes this down the sideline and chips back for Titanium. Look at this team pass.
That is what we've been waiting for George Mason. That high-level coordination is something that got them through Tier 2 in the LCQ. Can they hold on for 2 more seconds? Ball will stay up for Zipper. It's a whiff, though, and we're going to Game 5. Champions Field to kick off the playoffs.
What a shift. I mean, we went from 2-1, 1-0 games where it's majority defense that does the winning for whoever's on top there. It was Florida Southern in both games. But here, combined 19 shots on target between both sides. We scored 7 of those, as that was a shootout by the definition. Both sides had to seriously step up offensively to get across the finish line in game 4. And for George Mason, you had Titanium with 730 points and 100% goal participation, leading the charge for his team to get us to Champions Field.
Okay, well, you're not exactly too happy with it, but if you are George Mason, which I believe we both predicted, Bebe, correct me if I'm wrong,
yeah,
if you had George Mason or not. Yeah, so in terms of seeding, not the favorite, but in terms of our deaths, the favorite here, you take what you can get, which we say so much with the SCL for good reasons, because these games get sloppy, they get messy, and GMU, it took them a little bit of time to make their adjustments, but finally, at the right time, they looked to break the stride of Florida Southern, and we're going to see how that develops here, as now the pressure is going to be turned up at an all-time high, and what better could the stage be? Obviously, this is the second match of the playoffs, as USC has already played, but it feels like a beautiful kickoff opening ceremony for the SCL as we almost end our season.
It is a great way to start off the playoffs for sure in classic SCL entertainment fashion, as we've got Champions Field and we got Soj dunking Titanium just 7 seconds in. How about that?
Notorious first man Soj put that title on him after how well he's been playing as of late, and he kicks it off 7 seconds in. Games 2 and 3 with this type of formula spell disaster for George Mason. Can they go with the toe-to-toe matchup for another full 5-minute period? The answer seems to be yes, and the mess is here.
Dev, again, when his team needs him, will step up, and it's never flashy for Dev. He does so much dirty work for George Mason, all the demos in the opening games of this series, and here, just a simple sidewall read to expose Florida Southern for not being completely set off kickoff, and just like that, we've got an answer to the opening goal, and it seems like the shootout nature of Utopia Coliseum has bled into Champions Field.
Okay, well, again, you have to roll with the punches of the SCL, and these teams have survived not just the full season, but arguably the dirtiest place of them all in the SCL, the LCQ. Both teams very fittingly making it through, and potentially for GMU, it's always at the hands of this man, Titanium, with the leading goal.
And it's Jay off the backboard that times that assist perfectly, locates Titanium, and he strikes true. The failures of games 2 and 3 for George Mason's offense came off the back of their final touches, and they have since left those in the past.
Still so much time left in this game, and you almost never expect an outburst like this, but how about 4 goals in the first 40 seconds, basically?
Welcome to SCL postseason, baby, and look at this shot from Astro. This is where the stars for all teams need to step up, and Astro has right here. Zipper sets him up, and Astro knocks that shot in. 2-2, and we got 4 minutes left.
Who knows which way this game could go if this is the type of scoring and mechanical prowess that we're seeing out of all 6 players in the lobby. I mean, originally we didn't talk about the key matchup between Titanium and Astro because we didn't think they'd have to play so much offense when things got down to the nitty-gritty, and they'll meet in the midfield very fittingly here, and they're both going to look for their respective storybook endings. And obviously we talked about the precursor to that and how these two teams got here for different divisions and tiers of the SCL, different rosters, different storylines, very new to the SCL. There's so much left for them to learn, but so far they're getting the full experience for the content.
And this change for George Mason has shown itself in their first big-time match in the SCL as Titanium has led the charge in this series, but Dev is having himself a pretty good game so far as well. Though Titanium's on the ball here, has Dev centered, but puts it towards the net himself. Now Dev in the corner has 100 boost, uses that flip in a delayed fashion, and almost stuffs a third in for George Mason, though this last minute or so has been spent in the FSC half, and we're back to that old narrative of them stacking their goal line, playing as much defense as possible, and still somehow getting away with the clear.
This is now the 5th air dribble off the wall, basically, in a row for GMU. Make it 6 if Titanium can get that one. He cannot. Florida Southern not only allowing possession for GMU, but very slow, methodical, controlled possession. Net's going to open up for Jay as well, who does bump Zipper. Net is open, and who better to slot it in than Titanium at the halftime point?
He's 2 for 3 in game 5 here. With a trip to the lower bracket on the line for the loser. We needed teams to step up in this 5th game, and so far, Florida Southern has, as they've put up 2 good goals, but they can't stop this George Mason offense, which has hit another level.
Demo comes through, ball falls into Soj's hands, does get a beat, and will force Titanium awkward off the backboard, but only so much is in store for them. Jay, decent 50, but it's going to open up the lane for Astro to potentially find a shot here, but another touch at the very end is made. An extremely clutch play by the GMU defense, but once again, there's still way too much Rocket League left, and also a lot of FSC momentum, unless GMU can end it right here. Titanium, though, got bumped in possession. Will fall into what should have been Titanium's hands, but no boost means that Astro has the ability to do whatever he wants, playing like it's free play, grabbing enough boost to make it feel like that as well, until Jay denies. Almost a minute 30 left here. What has been a very true testing moment in the late stages of games 2 through 4. Big double as well for Astro, but who's going to make their point? Who's going to make their statement for Florida Southern?
Soj on the ball, was out 50'd, and the play went right to Dev. That's a free goal for Dev. He just collects the ball downfield and says thank you very much as he waltzes in a second.
I mean, what are the odds? Poor Zipper rotating around the play, and not exactly the most perfect rotation, but not a bad one by any means, and the ball pinches directly into his flipping car. Momentum carries into Dev's loving arms, and he will push that into the net. Florida Southern was already looking down the loaded barrel of a gun for sure, but now it's looking like a double barrel.
Oh, and Dev dunks Soj there too. The last play was a demoer's dream as the ball just comes at him as he's downfield. Well out of position if you're talking normal rotations in Rocket League, but the role he's been playing here, it's been massive, and now on the goal line his efforts are required. Zipper, the chance to rebound, but it's Astro that takes the next shot as Jay finds a big stop, and defensively, we got to talk about Jay's positioning in this series, but after he makes another good stop, as Florida Southern do get their 3rd.
If anyone's going to drag this Florida Southern roster into overtime, it's got to be Astro, and now it is all systems go for Florida Southern. You're probably realistically only looking at maybe 2 to 3 more drives down the field as an entire team, and they're going to go ahead and try and make it happen early, and Astro! A highlight play to tie it up with a minute to go!
And he delivers a rebuttal to Dev's thanks earlier, a thanks of his own, as George Mason make the big mistake of giving him an inch, and Astro's taken a mile. 4-4, 54 seconds left in game 5. There's no telling what'll happen next.
Well, here we go. The answer is right in front of us. It's just a matter of, do we see extra time here to kick off the night? Jay doesn't want that. Titanium doesn't want it as well. GMU, I would say, are fortunate to find the goals this game, and another one comes through off of some wild bumps.
And I think it's Jay up ahead, connecting with Zipper here. Zipper's in the air. He's got full boost. He's blocking that shot, but not if he's taken clean out of the play. A surgical removal of Zipper there from the FSC goal line. And George Mason once again use physical Rocket League to get themselves a big-time goal.
Astro sitting here with a hat trick to his name. Dev with one of his own, and neither team is out of the woods, as that one will be closely pushed off the bar after the dunk comes through. Action is temporarily off the screen, but now Dev will try to push it down with Titanium at his wing. This ball goes to Zipper. Zipper, solo play, backboard. It will stay up. Dev could end it with another touch. Ball will stay middle. It's up to Soj. He whiffs. Titanium calls game. And Florida Southern let 2 games slip through their hands. And George Mason, the Wonder Kids with Titanium, move on.
Oh my word. That was the best fight that George Mason could have been given in that series, but they come out on top by the skin of their teeth. 1 goal the difference at the end of game 5. That was an absurd showcase of just how stacked this SCL playoff bracket is. I said it in RL chat. This is the most stacked SCL playoff bracket of all time. And that right there was a showcase between the 8 and the 9 seed. We're not even talking top 7 here.
My God. I mean, what can you expect with the SCL other than that and how we even get to that? It's always different every week about who will mess up what plays, what 2 teams will go toe-to-toe in the messiest fashion. And for the 8 and the 9 seed, I would say that's pretty on par with what are 2 of some of the best teams that the SCL has to offer. And George Mason, again, this story is something special. Now, granted, you do get rewarded with a series against Cumberland, but who knows what this roster could do after making a comeback like that.
Look, Cumberland has dropped games in group play this season, and George Mason Academy was one of the teams to take a game off of Cumberland, and whether or not Cumberland was completely locked in for that one particular game, I don't know, but if the B team can do it, the A team certainly can, especially in the form that they've taken, with Titanium coming back, one of the best stories of the SCL postseason so far. And, I mean, let's take a look at the goals scored there. As we started off, a lot of goals in game 1. Then Florida Southern's defense took over. As in those 2 games, I forget if it was games 2 or 3, Florida Southern used in one of those games 2.5K units fewer of boost than George Mason did, which is crazy. You never see that kind of difference between 2 teams. But FSC survived and won, and then we had a couple of shootouts develop, TJ.
Would have never expect the shootouts to come through. Games 2 and 3 were very consistent, normal games of Rocket League. Other than George Mason in Game 3, maybe at some moments they wish they could have gotten back, but they were example games of what Florida Southern knows they can do, and which is be as efficient as possible with the talent they have on the front line. And George Mason, it is send everybody forward and just try to control the midfield through demos or through air dribbles. And they've gotten so many, too many in Game 5. And Florida Southern, we talked about, could they survive the war? You're looking at Game 4, and you were hoping that they would have won that battle.
It looks like we will be getting an interview here with Tihan, who will hop into the booth with us as soon as Shaka gets him all set up. But, I mean, after the electrifying series we just watched, I'm curious from his perspective how that felt, not being on the field, but from watching on the side as the manager of the team. Though we do have other results to talk about, TJ, real fast while we do get him set up. As James Madison, I think to the surprise of very few, did 3-0 Auburn, so they'll be taking on UT Dallas as our next series on stream. We talked about it already. South Carolina 3-0 UT Arlington, and then Florida and KSUB. I actually already have games registered. Florida is 2-1 up in that series.
I mean, all I'm going to say is in my predictions, I am 2-0 thus far.
Pretty good.
And I also believe you're 3-0, Pepe. Correct me if I'm
pretty
wrong.
Good. Yeah, I am.
Wow, what a rare time it is to be in the SCL. We get Pepe back for a semester, and his predictions have changed after the break. But also, just out of curiosity, who did you pick over there in the Florida KSU match?
I had Florida winning that one. KSU is a bit of an anomaly for me right now. I think they're on a bit of a downtrend at the moment, and so I definitely favor Florida, who are on the opposite side of that sort of trend. But yeah, we'll see if they can close it out. Bruton Parker's also already 3-0'd South Carolina as well, so we have that result coming in.
Yeah, which unfortunately for USC, I think that was decently expected. Now, granted, their losers run could be something of dreams, but I think without further ado, we're going to go ahead and knock out this interview. It is Mr. Tian himself.
Oh, all right. And we got a webcam as well. How you doing, Tian?
I'm doing all right. How are you boys doing?
Pretty good. We were treated to a bit of a stressful one there, which I can't imagine the stress in the caster booth was any kind of match to what you were feeling. How did it feel watching your boys play that one out to its full extent?
You know, going into it, we did a warm-up scrim against JMU, and the boys did look really good. And going into that, I knew Florida Southern. We played them a couple times before. We played them in the March Madness qualifier thing and had our number the first time, and I don't think we played to our fullest ability then. But the boys came out to perform today, and yeah, we've just been on a roll.
I think on a roll is a very nice understatement to how GMU has looked as of late. You guys both online and offline have looked incredible. You mentioned in scrims you've looked incredible. This series obviously slightly messier than you would have liked. Do we think it was a Florida Southern matchup pick that caused that, or is it maybe some of the pressure getting to the guys, or a mix of both?
I'd say it was more of a matchup. I don't think the guys have been nervous as of lately. I think they've actually kind of figured things out how to mesh our play style finally. It took a semester, but hey, we're rolling. Kind of helped with Titanium sitting in the coaching spot and kind of analyzing how Dev and Jay have played. And, he's found out how to adapt, and it's worked perfectly. But going into Florida Southern, they have a play style that kind of counteracts ours in a way. So it's going into it, I was a little nervous. I actually didn't know what the outcome would be. Wasn't fully well. I don't want to say I wasn't confident in the guys, but I do know Florida Southern can give it their all. So like I said, just happy we got the dub in the end.
Totally fair. And one thing I also really want to know before I hand it off back to Bepic is a lot has changed in this George Mason roster. The camp seems to be doing great mentally and physically on the pitch, but now you have to go against Cumberland. Should we be expecting anything crazy there?
Hey, if our academy team can take a game, I think we can take at least two. So,
That's what I said.
kidding. Hey, we'll see what happens. We're going into it with good vibes. And we'll see. Yeah, that's about it.
Fair enough. Looking more micro at the team. Since Titanium stepped back in, you guys went 3-0 in the SCL last chance qualifier, third place collision on the coast, 4-0 JMU at the Bloom. Like, what exactly has Titanium brought back specifically to the team? Because you're just changing one guy, and yet the trajectory at this team has gone on since then is basically straight up to the top of the SEL.
Yeah, well, Titanium used to be rank A back in his old days. He's like reaching like 28 now, I think, or something. I'm kidding, by the way. He hates that. So that's why I said it. No, I'm joking. But, it helps having a player that was at that level at one point. He might not be that same rank A, but still has the knowledge and can fit in perfectly when needed. And that's not like discrediting Adapt or Jason at all.
Mm-hmm.
They are great players in their own ways. However, they don't have the same level that Titanium could possibly bring. And, Jay and Dev, they haven't changed one bit. But Titanium kind of, like I said, watching over them for the first half of the semester, getting an idea of what to expect from them. It's a lot different when you start out. Like last semester, we started out with the roster. We had complications and rotations and communication, a lot of that. And kind of sitting back in the backseat helps you kind of analyze what is needed from you. And so that's what he's done. He's brought a lot to us. And so I'm just happy that he's still with us right now.
All right. Well, he was having musty setups off the back wall of FSC in that last series, so he's pretty close to his rank A peak, I think. But Tihan, thanks for joining us in the booth. Real quick, we got James Madison, UT Dallas on stream next. What's your prediction?
Ooh, okay. I gave Gad some tips on UTD, and I think they got it. I think they got it. Plus, they're coming off a fresh series, so.
All right, there you go. Tihan's calling a James Madison win. Tihan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
All right, well, that does take us to a break, as we do have James Madison and UT Dallas coming up in 8 minutes' time. So let's get everything set up for that. TJ and I will break it down the other side of a break. So don't go too far, as SEL Rocket League, of course, sponsored by MSI. We'll be back after this quick break. Welcome back to SEL Playoffs. Well, we've already had one trip to Champions Field tonight, so we might as well copy and paste that part, I think, of George Mason and Florida Southern series we just watched on stream, TJ, as now we've got a series that has precedent for going to Champions Field between James Madison and UT Dallas.
And that precedent was just a little bit ago. We have to mention that in Week 4 of groups, it was round 7 technically, that these two teams directly fought to the very end for the 2 seed in Group 2 in Tier 1. And it went all the way to 5. UTD completely stole it from JMU. I mean, the game differential between those two teams over group play, JMU was at plus 11, UTD was at plus 5, and Bepic, I would say there was no business for UTD to steal the 2 seed from them.
You would say that, I think, based on a slow start to spring, but this team has figured it out since then. UT Dallas did go 0-3 in the winner's circle, but they were up there with the Bruton Parkers and Cumberland, who currently sit at the top of the SEL. So no shame in an 0-3 record there. We'll see what they can do in their second match against James Madison the last several weeks, as we have a trip to top 6 on the line here. And for both teams, a top 6 performance in SEL playoffs is massive for their land chances.
It's not a guarantee by any means, but you can for sure get closer. And now let's talk about our first major storyline. Ability is in the Twitch chat on the bench. Tyler has subbed in for JMU in what I believe is the first time all season in a major league match that he's had to do that. But anyways, hopefully Ability will fill in the gaps for us in Twitch chat, because that's a pretty big knock to the identity of this JMU side.
No kidding. I mean, this is a former starter, obviously. Tyler was replaced by Pigeon, and so him losing his starting spot is no referendum on his own individual skill. So still, I'm sure, capable of being in the starting lineup of JMU. Otherwise, they wouldn't have him in this massively important series against UT Dallas. But so far, I mean, so good for the Comets. They've had the bulk of the possession, but minute 15 in, that's no harm done against the Dukes of JMU, as they've defended well and now can get their own chances in offense.
I'm glad you mentioned that Tyler is a former starter. I'm glad that you just brought up the offense, because that right there is what you would expect from Tyler. He has always been an offensive first-man powerhouse in that Fennec that he's currently in. He's been able to run offenses completely by himself, and Gad, somebody who's been on a major improvement arc this season, almost finds the first goal. Now Pigeon, reset, knows how to find some shots and some opportunities of his own. Tap in, Tyler gets the first.
Well, here we go. We talked about him, and Tyler says, you rang? I mean, set up by Pigeon, forcing a double commit on the near side, sure, but that is a great shot to get Tyler involved early on. And this James Madison team is coming off of a 3-0 victory in a series against an Auburn team that they picked. JMU went 3-0 in their winner's circle group, and they got their first dibs when it came to opponents in round 1, chose Auburn and took care of them. So they're looking good for this series, and Pigeon, with space off the backboard, sets up Tyler again. He's shooting 2 for 3, and the Dukes are up 2.
I mean, they're going to continue on and continue on. They've done it against almost all of Tier 1 and look poised to be real contenders here in the SCL, and that narrative isn't changing anytime soon.
And we have gotten word as well that a win here officially puts James Madison at 32 points, which we've calculated to be around the magic number to clinch. Right now, East Tennessee State has clinched with 36 points on the board, so 32 is just covering the worst cases. So James Madison with a win here will get themselves in a very good position for land, though they still need more, as UT Dallas seem to be waking up offensively. Had a close opportunity to score there. Now Blippy with a demo downfield paves the way for Zora to try and score, but Gad's back in the nick of time.
Pinch goes all the way down the field as well, as almost a shot on net, but off of Dalton's backside, it will at least stall out to Pigeon, who can't do too much. Dalton, somebody who has been the core of this UTD team, the core of many teams he's been on. He is one of the players to watch out for in the entire SEL, and somebody who can easily be a catalyst. But that's also one thing worth noting, is that this UTD roster is so incredibly balanced. Like with JMU, yes, they're all very good, but Pigeon is in a league of his own, and maybe UTD doesn't have anybody directly like that, but it's because they are all extremely talented members of the Rocket League community. And when they combine, it's been a mixed bag of their performances. But at least as of late, I believe they're poised to make this series close against JMU, no matter how the history has been, positive or negative for both of them. And they almost find their first goal, but another slight miscue off the post for the time being.
Worth remembering as well that UTD is coming into this series relatively cold, considering they didn't play a first-round opponent officially for the SCL. I'm sure they had a scrim. I'm sure Away set them up there, but still, 2-0. It is a little bit cold offensively for UTD, as they have missed several good opportunities to score. 7 shots on frame here, a couple rings of the woodwork, and those gongs of failure on that JMU side have kept UTD scoreless. And off the backboard, there's another opportunity for James Madison to make this lead worse for UTD to have to come back from here in the final 60 seconds.
UTD have hurt themselves throughout this game, finding slight chances, and now finally they get their best one yet. Blippi will strike first off of a very nice full field play over one for him.
Oh, it's the freshman going coast to coast, and there is no getting back against that one. Once Blippi beats the first man of James Madison, they were not ready for the rest. And finally, it is UTD getting going offensively with shots actually between the 2 posts. Though Pigeon almost has a quick answer, sets up Gad for a shot, but Blippi is really making a splash here in game 1.
We are not out of game 1 by any means, and that 50 will make things scary, but Tyler, the substitute, coming in, making a great play pass too, and he's going to do it again. He's going to look maybe for Pigeon. Pigeon will bump for him instead, but Dalton not too affected by that. Great pass from Gad as well. 20 seconds left. Pigeon looking to stall with a full tank of boost, and maybe even open the door for Tyler's 3rd of the game.
Well, that was incredibly awkward here. Pigeon just kind of hammers this ball, and he bumps Blippi. Okay, that's why it looks awkward for UTD, because Dalton is left on an island there trying to read what JMU is throwing at him. And that's what happens when you're playing Pigeon and he gets his time to set up the offense of James Madison. And here he goes again, this time sweeping the line and won't make contact, but Gad is surveying that midfield line and should put game 1 to bed here. It's the Dukes on top early on, but I have a feeling this series has a lot of leg left.
Well, the first major story point has been answered. How will James Madison look with Tyler in the rotation? And almost in a very storybook former way compared to last semester before Pigeon got here, it's what you would expect. Tyler is an extremely offensive player. They play extremely offensive. They score very early and often, all the way to the very end. And of all the people to be the spearhead, Tyler shows up and immediately fills that role.
And we will be resetting the server real fast to get UTD some better ping. But going forward, I mean, they're still not in a bad spot. They started coming alive there towards the end of that game, and getting Blippi kind of facilitating things, I think, is a really good sign for UTD. He's a great first man for this roster, and if he's online, I mean, it'll be easy for Dalton and Zora to find their chances in offense too, as we saw right there in the air. Blippi is a force to be reckoned with, and going into game 2, UTD isn't in a terrible spot now, as JMU have shown what they're made of. Now it's up to the comments.
I'm really not sure what more you could ask for if you are a JMU fan, which I know that the entire GAD family is very much so in attendance to support the boys, and for good reason. They're a team that is poised to make land, especially winning this game and getting their get back over UTD. But on the other side of things, UTD, a team that's been very self-driven. They don't talk a lot of crap on Twitter. They don't talk a lot really in general. They are masters of their craft, and all that they focus on is showing up and balling out. Now, in terms of that will translate here on Forbidden Temple, I'm not sure yet.
And, I mean, it has to. Reverse sweeping JMU is not going to be easy. And last night, actually, they got a pretty good test. This was an ability in the lineup for James Madison. But in CCS conference finals, I think it's the Sun Belt conference they're in, they went to 7 with Louisiana. So UT Dallas is playing a James Madison team that was tested last night, and I'm sure is taking any lessons learned from that series against Louisiana, where JMU did win in 7, I should add, into this big-time series with a potential trip to land on the line with a win here, because you have a huge safety net underneath you with a victory here if you're James Madison. I mean, similar story for UTD, as top 6 could get them to land, but I think by a lot of our calculations, they need top 4.
I'm happy that you bring up James Madison and CCS as well. James Madison spent so much of the season being the favorites with the addition of Pigeon, but as of recently, they've been pushed very heavily, not to mention their struggles in the SCL, forcing them to actually not get a first-round bye and have to earn their spot in the playoffs, but also at the Bloom. They had a very tough moment, and not even to mention that they didn't win Collision on the Coast either. So all of these real checkpoints for James Madison has left this team hungry. I mean, shoot, Bepic, you casted that Collision on the Coastland. They didn't even finish top 4.
No, they look good, and I think Collision on the Coast at the top had a streaking George Mason team, a really good-looking Florida team as well, and for James Madison, I know finishing outside the top 4 is not where they wanted to be, but they're still looking good. Each time we saw them on stream, it was plays like this, where Pigeon does so much work up front, and then it was Gat and Ability there doing a lot of work behind the play, but Tyler is slotting in perfectly, as he's got I believe 3 of the 4 JMU goals across now the first game and change.
Well, top 4 almost feels like the floor for JMU! And how about you scoop it up off the floor of your Pigeon for this worldie?
All right, 2-0 just like that. And that is what Pigeon does for this team. Up front, he dazzles. 2-0 James Madison, and we had a reset to make sure everything was good to go after UTD looked pretty good at the end of game 1, maybe had some stuff going for them going into Forbidden Temple, but JMU have taken all of that and tossed it out the window.
Well, there is still plenty of Rocket League left, but with how hot and how consistent James Madison have been, and with Tyler making a really nice scoop and almost score from there, it's a very tough road and a tough mountain to climb for UTD. Now, granted, they did show that in league play, or in group play, I mean, that they are able to take it to this JMU roster, but it feels like that while UTD have been consistent and have shown up to, I believe, only Boost on the Beach in terms of major performances or leagues, JMU's been all over the place. They've traveled a lot. They've probably been bonding a lot as a team, as at least we know the Gad family has also showcased that level of bonding over the season. And it shows in their gameplay as well. They're extremely comfortable. They trust one another. And even when Tyler comes in, they have not lost a step.
This UTD team, confident as well, but playing off their back foot. And Zora will pop that ball upfield. Dalton clears a little bit of a path, taking a player out. And Blippi follows suit, sends Zora downfield, and now sticks around to slow down this JMU attack. So makes up for his mistake with good presence there in the infield. And now can really make up for it with a solo play downfield. He'll look to dunk Pigeon, but Pigeon takes control at crossbar level. Can't get through Zora, though, as UTD are starting to put up more of a fight in this offensive zone. And in that purple side of JMU, this is where UT Dallas need to start working a bit harder.
Gad off the sidewall, no major next touch for him. Blippi will take very quick advantage off of the JMU corner. Also gets a 50 of his own for Zora to go potentially for a corner, but he can't place it, so Dalton will step in. And I already mentioned it in game 1, you need him to be on a heater today.
Definitely. He's got, I think, more experience at the collegiate level than the rest of this lobby combined. Dalton has seen some things in CRL and at the tippy top of the scene, too. The guy has so much experience, and he's fun to talk about the scene with as well. And at Boost on the Beach, I know I hung out with this UT Dallas roster for a good chunk of the weekend, and they've been connecting as well as a roster. And you've got the age gap between old man Dalton and freshman Blippi, but they have filled those gaps well on the field, and it shows in their recent results, but right now they're still down.
Almost 2 minutes left to go here in UTD. We've already mentioned it plenty of times, but going and evening up the series in playoffs in Game 2 is immensely easier than falling down 2-0, especially against this Duke's roster. Now, granted, this has been a much nicer back half of the game for UTD. In fact, really, the entire game has been more so in their favor other than the first minute, where JMU was able to find both of their goals. And JMU haven't taken their feet off the gas pedal just yet, but they're not as aggressive. You can tell that in nature, especially with the fact that ability subs out with both Gad and Pigeon in the rotation. I would expect this team to maybe not be as consistent on the defensive half. Tyler, though, very experienced on the other side of the field, and will try to put a shot on with about 90 seconds to go. Blippi potentially looking to find a goal for UTD. Gad will take a stab for JMU, but a lot of just ping-pong energy right now in the middle of the field.
JMU had to earn their way back, I think, into playing more on the front foot, playing aggressively upfield, as UTD had solved a bit of a riddle with the boost game and positionally as well, as they'd been backed up at the start, allowing JMU to take more space in the center third. But now, James Madison have to play a little bit more cautious because UTD can punish oversteps on this field, though at the moment, James Madison are playing reserved enough, and they're connecting well. Love the passing plays back and forth as Gad and Pigeon work together to try and clear, though Zora won't let them out. Dalton clean beats Gad there in the offensive end for UTD, and now there's an open backboard for Blippi to score, but he hits the back wall, and with 40 seconds left, you've got to be hitting opportunities like that.
The post is diabolical, and I cannot believe that that's not in. You're going to definitely be feeling that one in the morning if you're UTD, but you can at least get away with it. You still have 30 seconds. You can find another passing play. Dalton could be the spearhead of that play looking for net. Gad able to stall, but also setting up Blippi, who will keep this ball middle. Zora is there, does get a 50 to keep it in the middle, and Gad has to be careful how heavy this touch is. Tyler's there to redirect it and at least give Gad a chance to waste some more time. Now Pigeon all by himself, awkwardly bouncing ball off the corner. Zora's there, no bumps come through. Pigeon misflips. This one's on the net. Tyler will kick it away. Can he get one more to put the Dukes up 2-0? Zora will try to keep it up. Ball will stay up, but for how long? The answer is nada. JMU up 2-0.
10 shots for UTD, 60% field domination, and yet they fall here to a JMU team that started out hot on Forbidden Temple, but kind of cooled off a little bit, was forced to play a lot more defense there, but coming up big on that goal line, Gad with 4 saves on a good chunk of those UTD opportunities, and James Madison, off the back of some more reserved play down the stretch, still get a big win in Game 2.
Well, I must be honest, Epic. I believe there was a pretty heavy desk-leaning fashion for JMU. I don't know what your specific score prediction was. I had them going 3-1 with UTD because I really felt like we were going to see a lot of that group stage level unexpected, crazy mechanical moments from UTD, like we know they can provide in all facets of this game. But so far, it's just been very narrow margins in front of the net that they cannot find. It's the post that's their main enemy right now.
I think I had it going to 5 in my predictions, kind of knowing that it was going to be on stream. So a little bit of a bias just for me wanting it to go the distance, but I did have JMU winning as well over UTD, getting some revenge from that group stage match. But going into Game 3, which we're repeating on Forbidden Temple, our producer's slacking. We apologize to everyone out there. But we're repeating Game 2 for UTD is a death sentence. They've got to step up even more, finish more opportunities, and if they can have a Game 3 that's more similar to the back half of Game 2, they're going to be in a way better spot because the star power of James Madison was limited just a little bit more with good 50s, and that space in offense for JMU just wasn't quite there as much.
I mean, JMU's never been a team who's really needed to rely on star power. UTD, the same. Yes, a player like Pigeon is very, very different, and for UTD, a player like Blippi, another great freshman addition as well. But at the end of the day, we're talking about 6 of some of the most talented players here in the SCL, even with Tyler in instead of ability. There's so much talent that any one of these players can take control. For UTD, we just haven't really seen that just yet. We've seen flashes of Dalton having his moments, but he can't do it by himself, especially when you have to win 3 games in a row in playoffs, let alone.
Ooh, okay, Zora actually almost really provided a spark for the Comets, but instead it's a 1v2. Dalton the one in this 1v2, and he can't get the job done. Pigeon has an easy finishing touch there as up ahead. I think Tyler did make contact with Dalton because it didn't look like Dalton was really close to making contact on that challenge.
I'm surprised Dalton doesn't decide to jump early there. I don't know if he jumped at all unless he got bumped back down to the ground. So a very odd play for a player of his skill level to be making. But either way, UTD, they were able to make the last game interesting even though they allowed some early goals. And we're not entirely putting that comeback out of the question. I mean, again, UTD have quote-unquote upset JMU before, and now they're the higher seed, but they've got to get back to that narrative. Or potentially, if Dalton could be the one leading it, we're going to have an even game, but another great defensive stand for JMU.
I mean, the reason that in this matchup right now, UTD is the higher seed, the 4 versus the 5, is because of that one Game 5 that these two went to against each other. That puts UTD in the upper winner's circle and JMU in the lower winner's circle. That's how close of a matchup that these two are. And James Madison, close games, but 2-0 speaks dividends about their ability to take over games here. And so far, they've been losing the grasp on the possession game, but still, their counterattack offense is so lethal. Pigeon just misses right there. Now Gaddis Tyler center, and Blippi actually has to jump and read that play quickly, which he does so nicely, and UTD are still only down just this one.
Pigeon only seems to be getting more electric as we go on, as he looks for another chance right there, but is being denied for the time being. And that right there is a super dangerous fact if you are a UTD fan, or especially the 3 players on the field representing the Comets right now. You cannot let him get hot, especially when you've let Tyler, who quote-unquote is the worst player of the JMU roster right now. He's been maybe the answer for the Dukes on the offensive half, and I believe he's leading the goals category by both teams by a decent margin as well. 2 minutes left. Also, Pigeon! I already mentioned him once. I gotta mention him again. It's his 2nd goal.
Oh, Pigeon's catching up to Tyler's mark right now for sure. Takes that ball, and UTD, I mean, there was a lot of time between Pigeon's first touch and his second, and the Comets were kind of condensed on their goal line right there. So a little bit of confusion defensively for UT Dallas, and I'm in a series that I thought would be extremely close, and everyone predicting, I think, had James Madison winning, but had it fairly tight. I mean, UTD haven't quite come to play, despite Oasis giving us some insight into their warm-up. They had BPC Academy as their warm-up scrim. I mean, that's a good way to start.
Well, I won't be comparing the two teams just yet, because fittingly there is a world where they could play, but also James Madison warmed up against JMU. I mean, those groups of 6 seem to be really good friends with each other, so I'm all for comparing scrims, but can't count out the preparations that a team like JMU has done as well. Getting the scrim, the first round win against Auburn. I mean, they've gotten both the mental and the mechanical warm-up.
And Pigeon's been showing it on the ball now. He doesn't have a ton of boost to catch up to this, so Zora can try and take the ball away, but even that's a labored effort. Still, he gets his time in the corner, 40 boost in hand, and Zora can be a factor as well, can be a setup man. I think anyone in this UT Dallas side can be the guy to step up and clear a lot of room for their offense to work with. It has been tough, I think, individually for this squad to find any kind of purchase in that purple end, and now Dalton's having to rush back, and he can't make a save. He's just own goaled.
Thought Gad was going to call a game, but it might have unfortunately been Dalton himself. I thought this was savable, but no possession was made. It's a very rough touch for the Octane. I think in almost any other hitbox that may be caught, but that front end just a little too low and a little too fat as well, and it will be the 3rd goal and the potential dagger goal for JMU.
Oh, and now they're miscommunicating in defense. UTDR, Blippi and Dalton not on the same page, but Dalton upfield, low on boost, is going to try and make something happen, and it has to happen now for the Comets. Otherwise, James Madison, in stunning fashion, would come in here and 3-0 sweep a team that beat them about a month ago now in group stage. But there is that head-to-head victory that UTD have going for them. But at the moment, UTD, 0-3 in winner's circle, albeit a couple of Game 5 wins. They haven't won in the SCL in quite a while. And if they can't score 2 in 15 seconds, then that streak will continue.
We're not done just yet. That is a freebie at the hands of Zora, able to put that one away. And now we got to probably see a kickoff strat here. This isn't exactly the kickoff you'd want, though. Not a single corner kickoff, and no Strat gets pulled out because of that. Blippi will try to play off the Zora demo. Gad goes early, though, and denies it with a two-hand slam. He'll look for one more for fun. Won't find it. Tyler to potentially end it, but it's all just formality because JMU doesn't shock the world with this win, but my, do they look dominant and poised to make a deep run in the SEL playoffs.
Dalton's out early as well. He was not happy about that series going JMU's way, but man, that's what James Madison looks like when they're firing on all cylinders. Pigeon's setups were lethal 100% of the time, and against Louisiana last night, there were moments when he fell flat for the JMU offense there up front, but here, I mean, he was setting up Tyler, especially in offense, who couldn't miss a shot, it felt like, in that series. And defensively, Gad was so effective, not just making saves on the goal line, but up front as well. His challenge game was clean. So often it felt like JMU would find a stop, maybe on their goal line, maybe out beyond the box, and then they have space up the sidewall. And no matter who it is, that's a threatening play.
Florida Southern, when they showed up, and they were getting shots put on their net, they also played the defense and had the communication to back it up. For UTD, that's always been one of the talking points, is that team chemistry has been insanely up and down, especially given the fact that all those players are so talented. I do think the losers bracket could have a lot in store for them. Me personally, in my predictions, I think they're going to survive at least a round down there. But also with the way the SEL is, there's so much good or bad that could happen. And it goes in JMU's favor as well, who will have an interesting date with what should be Cumberland.
It is Cumberland confirmed, and before we talk about results, we'll go over the scores of those three games. I mean, UT Dallas, just one goal in each of those three games. And Oase has said that this team is only as good as their striking. That's me paraphrasing a little bit, but he says when they hit shots, they win. And here, UTD had plenty of shots to hit, and they only were able to put 3 of them in, whereas James Madison, we complimented their offense. Between Tyler and Pigeon, I mean, I think Tyler and Pigeon combined for 7 of the 8 that they had, and that's a pretty solid rate, especially with your sub coming in for Ability. And Ability did say that they're playing with Tyler because Ability's graduating the weekend of the SEL LAN. Tyler looks like he's fitting in perfectly fine.
I mean, there must have been some times where Tyler has been grinding with this roster because he's slotted in beautifully. And Ability normally isn't the aggressor for them either. I don't know if maybe the comm was just, hey, Tyler, you just go do you, and we'll play around you. I mean, of all the players in the SEL to ask to do that with, I think Pigeon and Gad are about some of the best adaptable players in the entire league. So no matter what the adjustment was, it's very impressive from Tyler. I'm not sure if he's going to have to play more series in this bracket, but at least you get out of here with a very dominant 3-0 sweep.
Well, with that win, putting JMU in a guaranteed top 6, I don't see why they wouldn't play more series here with Tyler, as LAN is fairly guaranteed here depending on results, which JMU will have some time to wait for, as it will be a little while before they play their next series, I believe. No, that is next week. Never mind. They get a week here, but I'm sure they'll be keeping tabs on lower bracket round 1. TJ, we've got some results to talk about now because we have our first major upset of the upper bracket here. I don't know if JMU over UTD was as major an upset as this because a lot of people had James Madison over UTD there, but Florida has 3-0 swept Bruton Parker Academy.
3-0. I mean, of all the warm-ups you could have gotten, I think KSU must have been a perfect one to match up against that Bruton Parker Academy team. I got to be honest, Bepic, I did not have Florida winning. I had it going to 5, and I had Bruton Parker versus Bruton Parker over there in upper semis. And I guess I'll take that one on the chin because Florida, it looks like that just like they did in the fall, they're going to get hot at the right time.
And if you remember, that Florida versus BPC Academy game that we had on stream, that BPC won, I think, in 4, that was a defensive masterclass from Milk and his boys. But here, Florida averaged 4 goals per game in their 3-0 sweep against that BPC Academy roster, whose defense we have been complimenting nonstop, feels like, this season. So it looks like it'll be Florida and Bruton Parker in those upper bracket semis, and then Cumberland did 3-0 sweep George Mason if we were having any questions about that.
And losers bracket is going to be very interesting as well.
Yeah.
Florida Southern will have to go up against Bruton Parker Academy. We're going to see Auburn, your boys, go against South Carolina, which I think out of all the teams they could have gotten is maybe a better pick than some of the rest. UTD, UTA have to play once again, the battle for Texas. And then KSUB versus George Mason. That is a huge checkpoint for both teams. And in the first round of losers, too.
Ooh, that'll be next week on stream. So for those of you watching right now, thinking about what plans you might make next Wednesday for SEL Rocket League, I ask you not to make too much if you're going to be busy between 7 and 9 Central Time, as we have a stacked stream next week. Of course, all of SEL Rocket League is sponsored by MSI, so make sure you do support MSI, as they have been supporting the SEL throughout this semester of Rocket League and for a little while now, actually. So support them as well. It helps the Southeastern Esports League in the long run, because TJ, we got nonstop entertainment here.
Well, speaking of that entertainment, I think we have an interview ready to go to. And who better than the man of the hour based off the Twitch chat reactions? It is going to be Gad. And I guess we might as well go ahead, and if Gad is here,
I'm here.
There we go. Okay, we do have Gad here. All right, well, let's go ahead and let's kick off the questions. So, Gad, I'll just go ahead and I'll start you off with an easy one. A very interesting back and forth history in the SEL you guys have had with UTD. What were you expecting coming into today?
Yeah, I felt like the win that they had on us in the group stage, it was kind of like we kind of were just like playing bad, and it just definitely wasn't how we wanted to play. But definitely going into this match, we were pretty confident in the win. We knew that if we just played our game that we would take the series, and that we did. So, yeah, we were pretty confident for sure.
Yeah, I mean, 3-0 sweep after they took the last one's pretty good revenge story. And I mean, Tyler stepped in for ability here, and ability to tell us that was because that he's graduating the weekend of the SEL land. But Tyler scored the most goals in the lobby. He had 4 of the 8 that you guys put in. I mean, what's it like having him step back into the starting lineup?
Yeah, no, Tyler is so solid. I mean, he was on the B team during their LCQ, and I mean, he elevated the B team like no other. I mean, no one was even looking at our B team. And Tyler just, played it amazing and helped them get some wins on their belt and stuff. So yeah, no, Tyler's amazing, and we're very glad to play with him in the SEL playoffs.
And now you're moving on as well to a guaranteed top 6, which puts you guys really on the cusp of making land. But you get Cumberland next week. What are your thoughts about that potential matchup, and what do you think your chances are of maybe beating them for the first time this season?
Yeah, I mean, no one's beat them, so I don't know what to really expect. I mean, they performed pretty well at the I can't remember what other land was going on during Collision on the Coast, but
BBB.
The Kentucky one, yeah. They performed pretty well. They did decent in the March Madness thing that the colleague put on. So I mean, they're such a solid team, one of the top CRL rosters. I'm best friends with Knight, actually, so we talk about it a lot. But when we played them in the tier assignment, it was a sweep, but it was 1-goal games, so it wasn't like they were stomping us. If we get a couple of goals like right off the bat, we might be able to take a couple of games. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough one, but we'll try our best.
Well, I'll throw in a more long-term question than just the next match before we let you go. In terms of land chances, you guys are pretty close, if not over, what may be the sweet spot to make it to Huntsville. And if you win one more, I would say it's a pretty calm confirmation. So what is the goal for JMU? Because obviously I would imagine that the odds of the Cumberland series either could tip in y'all's favor early, or if you do go to losers and you want to make a deep run, what's the end goal? What's the end placement here in the spring of the SCL?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking with Knight, and they still have a shot of qualifying for CECC. I'm pretty sure. I don't know for sure, but I think they are. In like another league, they are pretty close to it. So that being said, if they do get that spot in the other league, we can get the CECC spot if we get second. So our goal is definitely to be out Bruton Parker. I think that we played them when we played them. They're a very solid team. Don't get me wrong, but I think we can beat them. I don't think it's a long shot. I think we can definitely beat them if we're on our A game. But yeah, I would say second. I think like third, second would be where we want to be for sure at the end of the playoffs.
All right. That's a good goal. I mean, I know coming into this semester, that was what you guys talked to me about, was like aiming for that CECC spot. And I mean, with Cumberland coming in, that's, I'm sure, through a wrench. But hey, if they do get it in a different league, then you guys have a good shot. Gad, I'm loving what I'm seeing from you guys right now. You brought Tyler in. It looked like he never left the starting lineup. You're looking good right now. Good luck next week against Cumberland. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
All right. Well, I mean, that brings us to the end of our show, TJ. We've had some crazy-ish results with a 6 seed and a 5 seed currently sitting in winners semis with some banger series waiting for us next week. I'll give you the final word before we do sign off for the evening.
Oh man, so much pressure on the final word of what's been an incredible day for SEL Rocket League. I'm just very happy to be here. It is coming up on almost a full year of being involved in the SEL for me. It's been a very special and surreal season. I don't know where I'm going to end up after this year. I definitely won't be in Georgia, but the SEL holds a very dear place in my heart, and no matter what, I will be in Alabama for the LAN finals. It's going to be a pleasure to be there, and we also still have a lot left to figure out who I'm going to see there, and time will tell.
Still 5 spots on the line until we tally up the points gained by the top 4 teams in the upper bracket this week. We do have Valorant tomorrow, 7 Central Time, right here. Esports SEL on all platforms. Make sure you're following. Make sure you are supporting. Support regional collegiate esports. But thank you all for watching tonight. Thank you to all the players for competing and giving us a show this fine evening. Shout out to Shaka in the background pushing all the buttons. Shout out to TJ at the booth with me for our 2 series this evening. I have been Mr. Bepic. Have a great evening, and we will see you all here tomorrow night for Valorant.